Welcome to Compassionate, where we share about the moment where you discovered compassion for yourself and how it has impacted your life. Today's guest shares openly about how her anxiety disorder has positively impacted her life. I want to welcome Sophie Charlotte. So, Sophie, thank you very much for being with us today and sharing so openly about your life story. We met online, I think 2 years ago, maybe more.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so, yeah.
when I invited you to my Italian group for highly sensitives, Persona Altamente Sensibili, and you also started with a Yes Woman Facebook.
Yes.
And I thought, yeah, she should be in my group because, hey, you're also living in Italy and you're also just Dutch, just like me. So, hey, there's
Exactly.
connection.
We have a very similar mission, so I love that, how we're connected in that way. And I want to thank you for having me on your show. So congratulations for having that. And I'm looking forward to sharing my journey and hoping to help the people that listen to you and share this with my people so we can create more awareness. So thank you, Susanne.
Yes, very important. Yeah, thank you. So you told me once before that one time it's very interesting when you were standing in front of the bookcase of your of the grandfather of your ex-boyfriend at the time,
Exactly.
and how that became a building block for your future life.
Yeah, it was really crazy because I was in this relationship and it was just, bobbing along. It wasn't really exciting. And I had developed anxiety disorder in that period. And I remember being there at his grandparents' place, which was like, okay, boring. And, I'm a highly sensitive, but also highly excitable person. So I'm like, I need adventure, I need entertainment, I need excitement
Your
balanced
patient
with
S type, the high sensation seeker.
yeah, exactly. So I'm the classical high sensation seeker. Um, and so I was bored. I was just looking through his grandpa's bookcase and just seeing like what kind of books does he have, and boring, boring, boring. And then I saw this colorful heart, which next to it said, "You can heal your life." And now that I say it, I get goosebumps again because it was so weird to see that in that bookcase because it was a grandpa. Those people are just boring and read about economics or whatever. So so I was really surprised, and it really called me. So I plucked it out of the bookcase and I started reading it, and I was intrigued. I was like, wow, what is this about? And there were affirmations, and there's Louise Hay. Her life story was in there, and I decided to get the book myself. And that has really literally been the turning point in the journey I had already started, because I was like, I want to know how to deal with this anxiety disorder, how to free myself from it, trying everything and nothing really worked. So I remember that this was the positive switch towards my healing. So yeah, really important moment.
Yeah. So the grandfather wasn't so boring at all.
No, exactly.
No, no, I totally understand. So what was the official circle that you were in?
The official circle?
No, vicious circle.
Oh, the vicious circle that I was in. Well, I think just what I just said about like trying everything and not really getting anything. Um, Maybe it's interesting to know what happened, how I got into the anxiety disorder in the first place. Um, I was someone who always wanted to, or felt I had to be like the light of the party, always had to be part of everything, and be very present and not miss out on anything. And so all my energy was really focused on what was going on there and then, and like always in connection with everybody, because I really felt I needed other people's admiration, compliments, applause, whatever, to feel I was deserving of my existence here on earth. And that made me push myself very hard. I always had to be everywhere, do everything perfectly. And so at some point I crashed, And I wasn't able to do that anymore because of my energy levels. Like I couldn't keep it up anymore.
Was
And
that
that's how I.
when you were studying English, and at what point in class you had that physical and mental sensation of
Yeah,
total
yeah. I was doing teacher training college in Holland, and because it was my big dream to become an English teacher, and so that was beautiful. But I put so much pressure on myself that it was really, yeah, I was draining myself in a sense, right? And yeah, I remember being in class and at some point feeling very, it's really hard to describe, but it was like I was really nauseous, and I felt, you know, when your blood sugar gets really low, well, it was really like as if it was non-existent. I felt very weak and very wobbly, and I was like, okay, I need to get out of the classroom. And I went outside to get some fresh air and eat something. But it was, I really felt like I had hit rock bottom, in the sense of like my body was saying, this is the very last straw. This is where I'm not going to allow you to push yourself further than this. Which was a good thing, because I was, you know, running myself into complete exhaustion. But what happened was that I couldn't be the clown that I always felt I had to be in order to, right, feel good about myself. Yeah, so that was really what triggered the anxiety for me, because I wasn't able to perform the way I always felt I had to in order to be validated, loved, appreciated. So that was the context. I had already stopped attending college for a while, because I was like, okay, trying to get myself back together, doing yoga, seeing a psychotherapist. I'd also started medication, so many things. But that was still, you know, trying to deal with it. And I think that with that book, I started my journey out of it, because I started looking within myself instead of outside of myself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So there was a void. Would you describe it like that? A certain void within yourself?
Well, I wasn't aware of that. You know, when I think what many people go through until they wake up is that we're all in some sort of survival mode. We're like, okay, I need to get love, appreciation from people or things outside of me, whether it's like people, your parents, or the people you work with, or the people you're studying with, your friends, or in a relationship, or your performance, or, you know, how much money you're making, or the car you have, or whatever. Like, I think that's this unawakened state that maybe we all are born into until we wake up, in which we value the outer things more than the inner things. And I wouldn't describe it as a void, because I was too busy surviving, right? So I was probably filling it up, but I wasn't aware of it. So yeah.
Yeah. So with what things did you fill it later? Because then there was no space for, yeah, well, maybe a little space for anxiety, but you wanted to fill it with other things. What did you fill it with?
Yeah. So instead of trying to make myself feel better with outer things, I filled myself up from the inside with this, working with this book, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, which is very much about affirmations. But the most important exercise that I did in that book was the mirror exercise, in which you stand in front of the mirror and you look yourself in the eye and you say, I love you, Sophie. I really, really love you. I love you. And I still do it morning and evening, every day. And I have a mirror here and I look at myself and I say, you're awesome. Because the relationship we have with ourselves is key for everything else. And
Yeah.
I didn't really have a relationship with myself, because I thought I had to have a relationship with the whole world and everyone around me. I think instead of like saying maybe it was a void, I sometimes felt I didn't exist and I had to earn my existence. And
Yes.
that was really the core for the anxiety, because when I couldn't do that anymore, I felt I didn't exist, you know? So that's really deep. It's really, like, even saying that, it's painful. And so the only answer was to acknowledge my own existence by literally looking myself in the eye and saying, I love you, because what you do is you speak to your inner little girl and you really say, you know, you are allowed to be here. You're good just the way you are. You are valuable. And so what I did was I followed things that would make me feel that way. So yes, I continued my yoga practice, or I went to meditation workshops, or I really started paying attention to what made me feel good, instead
Yeah.
of what I thought should make me feel good. So there I discovered that I'm a very eclectic person, which I think many people are, but we think, oh, I'm like this, so I must like this. For example, I like rock music and reggaeton, or I like gospel music and Latin music. You know, I love dressing up really classy and also being at home in my home outfit, not wearing any makeup. Like, I have all these different parts of myself that are valuable and that are perfect just the way you know, I am. But that's been a journey, and really getting to know myself, like, hey, what makes me feel good? That was the most important question, and it still is, like, how I create a life I love. And the biggest thing that I filled myself up with was by when the relationship ended, I literally had this moment of complete freedom, because I sort of like lived my life in the mindset of my then boyfriend, who wasn't very adventurous, was often ill. And so my life had become the biggest boring story there was. But hey, I was doing that because I thought he would approve of me if I just did whatever he did. You know, that's how we stay stuck in these patterns. So that was gone. I had freed myself from it. And then I got to ask myself the question, so what is it that you truly want? And the first thing that came into my mind was Italy. And that was another key moment in my life, because I was allowing myself to listen to that and not just think, oh yeah, okay, everybody wants to go to Italy, drink wine and eat pizza and sit in the sun. But
Because
for
that's
me, it
what
was,
we do all day, right?
what's that?
Because that's what we do all day here in Italy, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right. You know,
Yeah.
it's sunny here. No, it's cloudy. It does get cloudy here. No, exactly. So, but for me, it was about acknowledging that feeling that when I came on holiday to Italy, I felt alive. I felt so alive. I felt so seen. I felt I could be myself. I felt there was a lot of love, a very high vibration. It was like everything clicked when I was here, and I just felt literally very alive. And that's what I missed in Holland. And so having the space to ask myself that question and really saying, yeah, that's my true desire, I was like, I'm going to make this happen. And because it's always weird, people always go like, hey, did you have an anxiety disorder? Or when I had it, you have an anxiety. I'm very courageous. That's my baseline. But that doesn't mean I don't have worries or anxiety, but I do stuff anyway. And I think that's also what's been my salvation, because by taking action, putting yourself in a different context, trying different therapies or approaches or whatever, it's like I knew that there would be something. I didn't know what, so I tried many things. But I think the most dangerous thing, that when you're suffering from mental health issues, whether it's depression or anxiety or whatever, is to stay stuck, not get out of the house, and stop moving. Like the different energy, the different circumstance, different surroundings can really get you out of there and make you see new perspectives. And me following that deepest core feeling of like, Italy is my home, I need to go there. By doing that, a year later, I prepared myself really well. I've lived here for 10 years now, and I cured myself from the anxiety disorder. And I
Yes.
really did. And it wasn't Italy in itself, not like anxiety moved to Italy. No, it was because it was my deepest truth. It was where I felt most alive. And so I left my steady job, I left my family, I left my perfect little life, which bored the hell out of me in Holland. and I started over. Like, I literally created a new personal reality, and so I created a new personality, quoting Joe Dispenza there.
Yeah.
And that's how it works. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing.
You're
Um,
welcome.
yeah, I have so many questions because I totally see that we sensitives do have the tendency to be more geared to the outer world for validation and people applauding us instead that we are applauding for ourselves.
Yeah.
And in that way, it is a journey to fill a void that you don't even know exists at the time because you're just surviving. That layer
Yeah.
of awareness, it takes a while to reach that next step. And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah. And it's also practice. It's like allowing yourself, even when it comes to choosing something from the menu, like a very tiny example that for us, like, I get overwhelmed when I see a menu. So I now allow myself to take time to read it, to see what do I feel, what feels good, like what kind of dish speaks to me. And that might sound really weird to most people who just go like, I'll have this, but that's how I respect my need for time and really eat something that is in alignment with my energetic state at this moment. And so I just allow myself to be more egotistical, but healthily, because I need that. Because if I don't do that, I'm not the best version of myself, and I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
yes, yeah. That's your main theme because, and is it that you take more time to read the menu, or do you grant yourself more time to read the menu?
Yeah, exactly. That is it. The granting yourself more time, or allowing yourself to take more time, right? So that's for me. That's the same feeling. Like I'm giving myself permission. That's why my group is also called the Yes Woman, because you give yourself permission to say yes to yourself and your needs and your desires and your happiness. Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's key for me. Very
yeah.
passionate about it.
And when did you say, yes, I'm going to pick up the conductor's baton and I'm going to redirect my own life instead of fighting against myself?
Yeah, I think it was really in that decision of moving to Italy, because that was so true to me, and there was no doubt in my being of like, oh, should you do that, even though you have the economy here isn't perfect or whatever. But it was my own allowing myself, granting myself my happiness. And still that has been a journey, because I was in a relationship here as well, and then I broke free from that. And I remember going to Berlin because I thought I was done with Florence. Actually, I was done with living from the point of view of that person, because we go as we learn, as we go we learn. And I remember going to Berlin and seeing at the Airbnb I was staying at, in this room of this girl, on her mirror she had this little postcard, and it said, "It's okay to be happy." And that was so mind-blowing to me, and it
What
was
did you
so
feel
simple.
when you read
I felt like this, oh yeah, that's so true. And I think I haven't been granting myself my happiness for fighting. So um it wasn't that by moving to Italy I was like, oh, in this divine state for the rest of my life. We as we go we learn. But that was another key moment, again, breaking free from a relationship, because you come back to yourself. And so that's also why I'm very passionate about self-love and creating this healthy relationship with yourself, because only from that space can you be in a relationship where you can be fully yourself and listen to what is important to you. And now I'm at a stage where I'm in a relationship where I feel he really adds to my happiness, but I've created my own happiness. And if we were to separate, then of course, I mean, it's really sad, but it's like the ground, the base, the solidity I have within myself. And so meeting each other, we meet each other in a very light way, and not like, you must make me happy. It's like, no, I take that responsibility for myself. And then we meet each other, and we have the most glorious time. But that's been a lot of inner work, both on my side and his side, before meeting each other. And that's why I always love these topics, self-development, because it's, you create your own happiness, but finding it, within yourself. And it sounds so cliche, and people go like, so how do you do that? Well, through a book like Louise Hay's, or working with you, or with me, or with whomever, really helping you find your own answers, because your truth, like what you want to say yes to, is unique to you. I don't have the answers. You don't have the answers for your clients, but we help them find their answers, and they are really empowering and liberating. And I don't know, it's just an honor for me to be able to do that.
Yes, it certainly is. Yes. So you went from being in a relationship for validation into being in a relationship with most and foremost yourself at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that was there was this moment that I went to Berlin for a month. I thought I needed to go there, but which was good, because I found myself again. And I always say it was my renaissance, because I came back to Florence seeing it in a completely different light, and realizing, wow, everything I've always desired, I already had here, but I couldn't see it anymore, because I had this veil of negativity, because I was looking from my ex-boyfriend's perspective. And so really rediscovering that, and being like, wow, I'm free to conduct my life the way I desire. That's so freeing, but also scary, because the question is, so what do you want? And that means taking responsibility for it, and actually also creating that.
Yes,
And
acknowledging that there is a you that you can ask, what do you want? That's also a journey in itself. Yes.
Yeah, and that you are worthy of that happiness. And so that's why that postcard hit me so hard. Like, it's okay to be happy. You can be happy. You don't have to stay in the struggle just for the sake of the struggle, because that's supposed to be normal. And I think that's another big trap, that when you're struggling with anxiety, or your high sensitivity is really limiting you, it's very often also because you surround yourself with people that make life hard for you. They're either very negative, or they put you down literally, or they're very small-minded. They live in their comfortable little box, which is fine for them, but you maybe desire something else. Because what I've also noticed, that yes, I'm a highly sensitive person, and I need to pay attention to my needs, and I grant myself that space and time and everything. But when I feel really aligned with myself, and I feel very empowered and on fire and excited about life, and I love life, and my heart is bigger than anything else in my body, then all of a sudden, all the stimuli aren't as I wouldn't, I don't know, hurting, or they can get really intense, that you're like, I don't want to have anything to do with the world. But when you become stronger inside, not in a masculine way, but in a more fulfilled way, when there's this fire of love for life within yourself, then we're also less fragile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. And I think that's also an important message for the people that follow us. Need to hear, because the intensity of my high sensitivity has changed, transformed, with me transforming as well. I don't know if you recognize this.
Yeah, because we sensitives, we never think, oh, I wish I was invisible. I wish I could just stay on the couch. I wish I could stay in bed. That remote control that's just 2 centimeters outside of my reach, just leave it there. We never think that, right?
No, because you do want to live. It's just
Yeah.
sometimes it just gets too
It's,
much, right? So
yes,
yeah,
but it is reality, because sometimes you have setbacks. And how resilient are you, and how willing are you to first notice that there is a you, that you are also a person,
yeah,
and you can grant yourself things, and that you can move forward by seeing yourself. You're not doing any harm to other people when you
bravo,
see
exactly.
yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you took medication for the anxiety disorder, um, were there certain beliefs around that for you
Yeah,
personally
because I,
that were true?
I yeah,
And
I remember that when my GP, well, the first thing was when my GP said, okay, so thank you for describing very eloquently how you feel. He's like, well, it sounds like you have generalized anxiety disorder. And I was like, thank you. And not because I wanted a label, but it helps to be like, I'm not crazy. This is happening for a reason, as in like this, there is a name for it. So that really helped. It really helped to be like, okay, so this is it. So now I know what I can do about it. So that was really good. And part of the treatment, or of the way of dealing with this, was granting myself to take medication, because that's what he prescribed and suggested. And I remember the scene in my head. So I'm going to both um, prescribe therapy alongside medication, so that you can now there's there's this gap, and you need to fill up the gap, and then you will go on and do it by yourself again. But now it was chemistry in my brain that was out of balance, and he described that really well, which allowed me to see that I'm not crazy for having to take mental health medication. It was literally a chemistry imbalance in my brain. So I was like, okay, bring it on. Like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, because I'm not getting out of this myself. I really felt I needed it. And it was so beautiful to be able to use this medication to be able to function in the first place, because I wasn't functioning anymore. I couldn't work, I couldn't study, I like getting through my days. Like, I remember waking up and like, okay, another day. I wasn't suicidal, but it was very hard. And I remember that in the afternoon or in the evening, it was like, oh, okay, I would feel a little bit better. But then the next day, there was the struggle, the battle in my head, the anxiety, the worries, the shit show started again. And that was really hard. So when the edges got taken off, because it was never that I was not feeling anything anymore or didn't have any worries.
Mhm.
It was just, it wouldn't be here. Like, my worries, my anxiety was here, so I couldn't function. But maybe it became like this. So I could also focus on going to the supermarket, for example, and do something. So for me, it was a real blessing that I could help myself by taking this medication. And my belief around it was, which is still true for me, is that at some point I will be able to do it by myself, um, because I believe we're healthy, capable beings, and because of the circumstances and experiences and maybe our own chemistry, stuff happens, and this medication is beautiful that it can help us, but always, for me at least, with the intention to then at some point create this strength or independence, or this
Yes.
strong base within yourself, so that you can replace the medication with your own self-love. And that's also what I always write in articles and everything. It's like, I cured myself from anxiety disorder by moving to Italy, between brackets, following my dream, doing what felt right to me, and self-love, because that's what filled it up. So yeah, I did have beliefs around it. I wouldn't judge anyone for it, and it's medication. It's like it's a great help. Um, of course, always ask, like, you cannot just go and take this you can't even get it at the pharmacy, but like a professional, a health professional can only prescribe that, can only judge that. And what was the belief around it for me was also like, I need to do it by myself. So I tried to do that also too quickly. Like I quit with the help of my GP for like 3 times, and I also fell back. And I noticed that when there was a gap, a void in my daily life, for example, I would do my final school placement, in which I taught at a secondary school, and then there was a big summer holiday, and the emptiness of that, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling good, I'm stopping, slowly stopping taking the medication, and then the emptiness of the summer holidays, there was too much time for me to think, and in the meantime I had not created a solid enough base within myself to not even have these extreme thoughts from coming into my system. So it takes time, and I think that at some point I was reading a book about compassion. That's the theme of your show as well, mindfulness. Wherever you go, that's where you are. John Kabat-Zinn, about mindfulness. I did a mindfulness course as well, and there was this chapter on compassion, and I can't remember the exact words, but the gist was, you can allow yourself more ease. And it clicked, and I was like, I'm fighting so hard. This was at a point where I had started studying English at university, which was not in alignment with how I learn. I'm practical. I'm a very intelligent person, but I don't study university academic style. That's not what resonates with me. So I was doing that. So that was, again, not in alignment. And so there the anxiety came back again. I had to quit the medication. And then I was like, I can allow myself to make life easier for myself. Again, it's the granting of happiness or joy or ease or comfort for yourself. And I'm like, I'm going to start the medication again. And this time I promise to myself that I will only stop taking it when I really feel so solid and full within myself, because I knew that was what caused the falling back into the anxiety. And the most beautiful birthday gift I've ever been able to give myself was my second birthday in Italy, where I was like, well, I'm taking this medication, but I really don't feel I need it anymore. And I called my GP and I said, can I stop taking them? And he was like, yeah, if you feel that this is right for you, or I talked to my therapist about it, I think. And I have never had such anxiety anymore. Like, I've really cured myself from the inside. And that's why I always love sharing this story, because I think this is true for any kind of, even physical illness. It's like, it's our inner world then really influences, every cell of our body. So we have the power to create what we desire in life, but it starts within us. Like, love within us is love without, like, outside of us. Abundance within us, abundance outside of us. Health within us, health outside of us, or in our body. So again, it's really powerful, it's really liberating, but it also means you have an enormous responsibility, because, hey, you exist to take care of yourself. I always say, be your own parent, be your own mother. Take care of yourself as an adult woman, mm-hmm. or as an adult man. Like, you have that, you owe that to yourself. You exist, you can touch yourself now. You, that's your duty to yourself, I believe.
Yeah, and also to your inner child.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's wonderful to hear how you got from condemning taking medication to granting yourself medication at the time. And we're also making very clear that we're not condemning anyone here. Like Sophie said, sometimes it is it can just be a step forward in self-compassion and um, truly seeing yourself also in that way. Yeah, so
Yeah,
thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
So,
It's like a stepping stone, really a stepping stone that I really embraced eventually fully, which
yes,
then allowed me to move forward. So yeah.
yeah, and that you are able to take life in your own hands, and that it is possible, because sometimes you have to go through so many circumstances that are not always so positive. And in that way, like Sophie just said, you, by granting yourself things and seeing yourself, the self-compassion, just step by step, just one step at a time, uh, can really give that transformation, like Sophie said, moving out of a relationship, going to Italy, which, by the way, like you said, isn't about Italy, it's about the freedom. It could have been any other country, but you felt very comfortable here. Um, and now helping others, also, well, you're not only talking about anxiety disorders, but many things. So I can imagine that's not only filling your void, but also filling the void of many, many others that you're helping now.
Yeah, that's really fulfilling, literally. And again, just like you do as well, like I help people find ways to fulfill themselves and to become in alignment with their true self. So I always say I have the easiest job in the world. I don't really do anything. I just help you find your answers, what works for you. And it's really fulfilling because you see someone transform from being, I mean, I work with women, like being a little girl, so excusing herself for existing, to, you know, standing in her own glory, in her own power, and in a very feminine, beautiful, loving way, in which she creates what she desires in her life. And that's all, I mean, it all happens in here. And what do you grant yourself? What permission do you give yourself? How big do you allow your life to get? And that's all in your hands. And when I got that, also through other programs I followed and things I learned, I mean, I'm still following programs doing meditation. Like it's an ever expanding evolution. Um, like really learning that, also really getting to, like, there is no glass ceiling. There is no, because you're a woman or Dutch or an age, or you look in a certain way, that's why you cannot have what other people have. No, it's all within yourself. Like, what kinds of beliefs do you have around what's possible for you? Like, because of my experiences and my past, I thought that love, where a man is very you know, supportive and very masculine in a healthy way, and very present and very loving and trustworthy, that wasn't part of what I could see, because I hadn't lived that. But then, changing my beliefs around that, I started seeing positive examples of kinds of men or relationships that I desired for myself. And I was like, wow, so this is possible. And then I called in my partner. But before that, I wasn't able to see that or allow that. And that goes for everything from abundance to health, to happiness, to relationship, to also anxiety. No anxiety is like, there are no limits, but we put them in their own heads. And it's fascinating, because once you really see that, you're like, fuck, I can really create whatever I desire. Let's go and create some magic.
Yes, instead of covering up your anxiety disorder.
Yeah, exactly. Because, and that's also why it's actually interesting how you're the first one who's ever interviewed me on this, because I never really talk about it. Like, I describe it in my book, the Yes Woman Manifesto, because I want to share my story, like where I come from. But I never focus on it, because that's what happened. And I'm very proud, or like, I think it gives hope and inspiration when you hear that story. But it's not about that. I'm not, you know, yes, I still have some anxiety about things, but my focus is on how can I make my life bigger and better and help others do the same.
Yes. Yeah. So when you think back to the time that you were teaching, um, what do you think that the students mirrored back to you? What was the important message?
When I was teaching, I love teaching. I still like, even when I had anxieties, like when I got into, like in front of the classroom, like when I got into my power, because speaking is what I do naturally. I love it so much, so that those moments were, I mean, that was maybe also when I was on, I was going to say, when I started medication. No, I was in it at the beginning when I started my first job. I wasn't on the medication. Those were the only moments where I felt alive and on fire, and I was like, okay, awesome. But then when I would check, I remember checking book reports, and then there was silence, and I was with myself and my own thoughts. And that's when it started, going crazy again. But those moments were wonderful. And also because I got to connect with other human beings. I love helping other teenagers, people grow. I was able to love. I think the cure against anxiety is love for yourself and for other people and for life, and following what makes you feel in love with life. And that loving fire from your heart just doesn't allow any space for insecurity or anxiety to exist in your field. So I also think that that's why on those moments when I was teaching, I was fine. And that was really frustrating as well, because you're like, hey, I can do this, so why can't I keep that up? But you can't always be performing, because I wasn't necessarily performing, but you are on this stage in a sense. um, and so you also need to have moments of silence. And also being by ourselves, being by myself, was scary, because then I would be with my own thoughts and my own anxiety. um, and so also taking care of my highly sensitive needs was very difficult, because I would be, I would have to face the difficult thoughts. And now I'm by myself all the time, because I love it. Like, I need that, and I feel great with people and without people. So that is possible too.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah. So in that way, you were, as a highly sensitive person, really able to see your students,
Yeah,
to truly
yeah,
see them.
yeah, yeah. And I think that also, because that's so key for me, because I didn't feel seen for very long. I think that being able to do that and connecting, and also like putting my energy and attention to them and making them feel acknowledged and seen and support them, that fulfilled me. So yeah, that was really beautiful. And now in my work as a life coach, I get to do that too, and really see my clients, and I don't know, I'm able to sense into people's energies. And so when they say something and they say, yeah, I want this or that, and then I can feel that it doesn't align with what is true for them. And so I dive into that and I work on that. And that's really beautiful, because I get to use my natural skills in what I love doing, and others are helped by it, and I get, paid for it. So it's all wonderful.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Instead of looking for a trustworthy partner, you now know that you can fully trust yourself in that.
Brava, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
it.
So, what changes, what transformations do you notice now comparing to the time that you had anxiety attacks? Can you describe a day, for example, how it
I like, it makes me laugh, because it's so completely different to like
Mhm.
what I lived. And they wouldn't even be attacks. I would just be in anxiety 24/7, just to make it easier.
Okay.
It's like I was always having these inner conversations, and it, like, that's also why I don't really talk about it that much, because I was literally a completely different person. Which is another thing that I think is important to underline, that you're allowed to change. You're allowed to transform. I mean, I'm different now compared to a year, even 6 months ago. because I'm continuously working on my own self-development. Where do I feel I still have resistance or some blocks or whatever? So I dive in, I do my meditations, I do my inner work. And as you know, that causes a lot of emotions, a lot of tears, a lot of journaling and everything. And that's how I get to the other side and then move up and up and up, because it's about shedding the layers. But when I was in the full anxiety, I would stay at home in Holland and I don't know, what would I do? I would just sit around and talk to my mom or read a psychology magazine to find answers, or read books on anxiety or how to stay calm, or I would drink calming tea all day long, or I don't know, it even makes me sad to go back into that reality, and it doesn't necessarily serve me, but maybe other people can relate to it. I think just the constant, like the fear around my solar plexus and then the battle in my head and trying to fight my own fears, and nothing was really happening. So it was all in my head. It wasn't like, oh, something scary is going to happen. Mm-hmm. It was like, for me, it was doubt about my then relationship. Relationship is a big theme for me because love is my most important value in life. And so when I was in that relationship, I was never sure if it was the right partner. But it doesn't really matter that it was about that. It was just that's what my system had chosen to fret about, to be obsessed about. It could have been something else, but I was always thinking about that. So I would test myself, like, if I think about him now, how do I feel? Oh, maybe I don't feel fully in love, so it must be wrong. And so my whole day would be like this. Mm-hmm. So yes, a lot of perfectionism in a sense, like it always has to be in a certain way.
Yes. You're reacting to life instead of living life.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and yeah, don't, again, surviving. Whereas now I feel I'm living fully, I'm thriving, I'm enjoying every second of my day. I ask myself, is this in alignment with who I am? Does this feel good to me? Does this make me happy? Because I've learned that when I'm happy and full of myself, literally full of myself, I can give from the overflow to other people. And so my energy is very pleasant. Whereas when I'm, so that's the biggest difference, besides now living on top of a hill in the Tuscan countryside, and I have a dog and a wonderful relationship, and my business is doing really well, and I don't know, I look different. Like, it's, if you look at photos, like the whole energy, but literally my whole physicality is different, which doesn't mean I'm like, that wasn't good. It's just like, now I feel very light. I feel happy. I feel I don't have to keep things under control. I can focus on life from my own perspective. And I think that was the key shift, that I was living life from other people's perspectives, or imagining how they would see me, and then live up to those expectations, which are bullshit anyway. But anyway, when I was able to trust myself more, love myself, I would start from here. And so now I live my life from my own perspective, and people might call it egotistical or whatever, but it's not, because again, when I feel good within myself, I can give the very best of myself. And that is the most loving and generous thing you can do for other people and the world.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you've already shared a lot about all the things that you have gone through, and shared a lot of advice. But do you also have additional advice for our viewers who are now thinking, hey, that might be an anxiety disorder that I have, or anxiety attack. I might be in depression, or what personal advice would you like to give them?
Well, if you feel that a certain state of like anxiety, and that you feel that you cannot function anymore properly, so it's really in between you and your life experience, then I would highly recommend that you see your GP, who can then tell you maybe generally what he or she thinks is going on with you, and can then maybe recommend going to a mental health care professional. Also, I mean, you can look online, but it's like, you know, when people feel something in their body and then looking it up, you feel you're going to die in 10 days. So especially with anxiety, there's many different types of anxiety. So I think it's really good to get informed with yeah, like professionals. So that's also a form of self-care. Reach out, tell people about it, choose well who you talk to, because, you know, if you talk to your grandmother who's very anxious herself, then, you know, that's not going to really help. My mother is a very down-to-earth, you know, grounded person who was always there for me, like, but in a very down-to-earth way. So that helped, because it's, you know, you can trust that person's maybe somewhat more objective view of the situation, and she would take me to the GP and all sorts of other things. So yeah, take care of yourself, and there is always a way out, and you're not alone in this. But do have the courage and the self-care to reach out and share it, and it is possible to get out of this.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So if people want to know more, they can, of course, read your book. How can they purchase it?
Well, they can contact me. I'm still in the process of having it printed, but I now have a digital version, so people can contact me on, you know, for example, sending an email to info@lifecoachsophie.com. Or, I mean, I'm very active on Facebook. I have my group, The Yes Woman, or my page, Life Coach Sophie, or my even personal Facebook, Sophie Charlotte. So just reach out, and or maybe they can even contact you, and then you can put us in touch. I always care very much about a personal approach, so really feel free to send a message. You're not going to get an automatic response or whatever. It's like, it's me. And then I will explain. It's only €10, so if people are interested, then I will happily send it and share my story and give them hope and inspiration about that it is possible to get out of it and create a much better life.
Beautiful. Yes, I hope this story of yours will now go into the world, and many people will read it and recognize themselves in it, and know that you can have self-compassion and take the first step, just like you did.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for allowing me to share part of my story here. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for this time and spending it with us, with the sensitive community. And my wish for you is that you can also always be true to yourself, just like you're doing now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.